Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Core's Facebook Live event. My name is Bob Melone. I'm a level 3 core coach from the New England area, just south of Boston. And I'm here today with one of my all-time favorite students, a now level 3 core graduate that I was first coaching back when I was a level 2 coach, and she was in level 2, like a core toddler almost. Not quite a core baby, but a core toddler at that point, right? Level 2.
Yes.
A fantastic loan officer, fantastic level 3 graduate, like I said, out of the Maryland area, Miss Sherri Bowen. So Sherri, I'm so excited to have you here today.
Yes, so excited. I was happy that you picked me, and I'm just excited to share my journey.
Good. Well, that's what we're going to hear a lot about today. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, how long you've been in the mortgage business, how long you've been in the core, that sort of thing.
Okay. Yep. So I have been in the mortgage business for 8 years, going on 9 years. I have 3 little kids. When I started the core, I had 2 little kids, and now I have 3. So my kids are 5, 3, and 9 months old. So it's definitely like a busy lifestyle. Like Bob said, I'm in the Maryland area, so I am particularly not near, DC and all that. I'm kind of more south where it's more small. So that's where I'm located. It's called Southern Maryland. And yeah, I think that, and I'm married. I've been married for 6 years, and we have been together for almost 13 years.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about how long you've been in the business, how long you've been in the core.
Yeah, so I've been in the core since I started in level 1, and level 1 was great. But as I started moving up the ranks, that really is where I started noticing a difference and really getting good. I say 23 was when I went into level 3. So right before that, I was in level 2. So I started in the core about I would say 4 years ago.
And what got you into the core?
There was multiple different reasons. I had a branch manager at the time who was in the core, and I was on his team for a long time. I learned the core ways through that. And then once I went out on my own, I was kind of hesitant because I saw what, all the homework we had to do. But then I was like, you know what? I saw my brother who's also in the core, and I saw him doing it, and his numbers were just up, up, up. So I was like, I think I'll try it out. So that's when I joined.
Very good. Very good. And what would you say going into the core, whether it was level 2, let's say, or even level 3, what were some of the preconceived notions you had about jumping into the core? And aside from the homework that you mentioned earlier, what were some of the things that got you into the core? What were some of the things that maybe kept you from jumping in sooner?
So I think what kept me from jumping in was, I was kind of focused on, okay, well, there's all these really big producers, right? And I'm not that big. That's how I felt. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for it, all of that. But what I didn't realize was really those are kind of how those people started. Was they started small and then they grew and got bigger and grew in multiple ways, which I just didn't see that from the outside looking in at that time. So I kind of wish that I would have gotten in earlier because, the earlier you start, the more time I would have had to go up. So I do regret that.
You'll have less time to create bad habits too.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is true.
I find when I meet people, maybe it's at a summit or at the megas or whatever, and I introduce myself or they introduce themselves to me, and they tell me that they've been in the business for 3-4 years and they've found the core. I get so jealous, right? I'm so happy for them, of course, but I get so jealous because I was in the business for 10 years before I found the core,
Yeah, you had to redo everything.
Yeah, right, exactly. So very good. Now, what would you say from jumping into level 2 to level 3? Your business, especially your cash net worth, which we'll talk about in a bit, has really exploded. But what would you say are the top 1 or 2 things or skills you've really started to master and hone in on just from being in level 3 that's really helped your business blow up like it has, and in your savings too?
Yeah, so I mean, I could go on and on, I feel like, with this question, but the skills that I've really mastered is, which haven't fully mastered this yet, but just being like, okay, I'm going to make the call. It doesn't matter what happens on the call. Before, I was really, really fearful. So I wouldn't make certain calls, I wouldn't reach out. And I'm just not letting fear drive that stuff. They've really taught me that the worst thing that can happen is what? They say no. Like, why do I care? Right. So I think that has completely changed my business. And really just sticking to like the schedule. My hardest thing always has been sticking to my calendar, making sure I get the calls done every single day. But now that I've stuck to that, even if, let's say, for some reason they give you all this, to do, and you're supposed to make your call every single day, and it's supposed to be 30, right? 30 great conversations. Even if I don't get all of those done, I still win the day, even if I had 5 great phone calls. So before, I was doing none. So really, the core has just taught me that just by doing the work, it's still 10 times better than what we were doing before. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. The second thing would be my cash net worth, teaching me how to save, focused on my budget, all of that. So doing a budget every single month, I can 100% tell you, if I didn't have to turn it in, I would not do it.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't, because it's already like every time I go to do it, I'm like, oh, but it shows me where I'm at. And now I can see how much my cash net worth has changed over the last few years.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So when you got into the core just a few years ago, where was your cash net worth at roughly?
Maybe so roughly I was right at 200,000. So yeah.
Yeah. And where are you at now, cash net worth?
So 630,000 cash net worth.
That's just, so you think about it, especially over the last few years. So we're not talking about you making all this money during 20 and 21 when, it was raining loans, right? We're talking about you more than tripling your cash net worth over the last 2.5 years or so, in a market that has been pretty difficult, to say the least, right? And you're not in an easy market by any means, either. You're in a pretty competitive market too. So, when Rick talks about investing, and he talks about if you're invested in the S&P 500 or an equivalent, without contributing, you can look at your balances or planning your balances doubling every 7 years, right? When you are contributing, your balances will double every 5 years. Your cash net worth has tripled in 2.5 years. That's insane.
Yep. It is. It's so good. I'm like, oh, I'm doing something. But then I still look at my numbers and I'm like, oh, man, I'm not at 1 million yet. You're always going to, I think no matter what you do, you're always going to compare yourself. But at the end of the day, like without the core, I would have probably still just been at 200,000, or maybe I would have spent it. I don't know.
Yeah. Right. Or maybe you would have thought you were doing well at 300,000 and you'd still be way ahead of people, normal,
every day,
the normal world out there, and think you were doing pretty good, but you've more than tripled your cash net worth. Unbelievable. So let me ask you this. So you're in a competitive market, you've put a ton of money away in savings, right? You obviously have nothing else to do but work and save money. Is that right? You have no other responsibilities in life. What else do you have going on?
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff. The kids are probably my main thing, right? So picking up during the day when they get sick, and just the normal everyday that everyone experiences, except for the fact of we don't have leave, but if we don't work, we don't get paid. So I've got the kids. Scarlett's in dance. I usually handle dance. Henry's in jujitsu. So I take care of that. And then of course, as you know, most moms, I mean, a lot of stuff just falls on you. They want you, and not like they don't want dad, but it's really, if they're sick,
it's a pretty big deal. Yeah.
They want the mom. So I really just, for me, everything else I have going on is pretty much that. And my husband, right? Like I got to take care of him too. He's probably like the fourth child.
Right.
So,
you wear a lot of hats, girl. So let me ask you this, and there's a lot of people here watching this, with us now. And by the way, if you're watching this, if you have any questions, just type into the chat box, and we'll be sure to answer those questions.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's a lot of people on this Facebook Live, Sherri, that are working moms, or maybe they're even young professionals right now, and they want to start growing their family. So how is it that you're getting it all done? What are 2 or 3 takeaways or tactics that someone watching could use when they're struggling to get it all done?
So I think that a lot of us have more time than what we really think, because how much time have we spent like distracted, or we walk out of our office and go and start talking to our team, or, just like mingling. We're not taking that 8 hours or whatever it is that we put aside for a work day, working and focus time. What I realized was I could get it all done at work in that time, but I wasn't working like hard that full 8 hours. So as long as I spend my day focused and stick to my calendar, I can get it all done. And now the good thing is, let's say if I have to leave and I do, have to go pick the kid up or something, I can push that back on my team, the stuff that I was going to work on. So yes, it puts a little bit higher load on them, but I've gotten to the point where I can delegate, and all of my coaches, like you and everyone else, has taught me delegation is key, and I can't be scared to put it back on them, right? Like they are capable and they can do it. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing, is just delegation and then sticking to my calendar. It is possible to do it all.
Beautiful. And so on the days where you don't get it all done, you're not afraid to push it back onto your team, give them a chance to grow into that opportunity or grow into that challenge, right? And succeed. And I'm sure that 9 times out of 10 they do, and they bail you out. What does your team look like right now?
So my team is just me, and then my admin / LP1, which she pretty much keeps me in line, but then also she has the ability to, do all the back end work, run numbers. She could pretty much do anything. It's just, I really try to line her up in the admin role right now, as much as I can. And then my LP2 is, who takes the loan from contract to close.
Awesome. And I know you're in the somewhat of the Northeast here, but it's winter time. It's winter where you were too. You got some snow this winter. What's your business look like right now in terms of through Q1 this year? What are your closings looking like? What are you on average closing?
Yeah, so doing a lot better than I was last year. I'm already up from last year. I'm at about, so I calculated units. I usually go by units, but so I am up by 4 units year to date. So for me, that's a big deal, because I can kind of see like my end of year numbers projecting out, and I know that I'm already up. So I'm happy about that. January, February, all that is typically the slower month.
Yeah.
So I am up by the 4 units, and I'd have to look to see where I'm at in volume, but I'm definitely up.
Good.
Q1. Yep.
Fantastic. Now let's go back to just before you and I first met. It was in level 2. The beginning, I think it was your first semester in level 2. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But you had just gone to your first summit. What was that experience like? At that point, you had 2 kids. Your youngest at that point was 6 months old. So new baby. You came to the summit. What was that experience like?
Yeah. So, and I said, I would definitely share some pain. So the first summit for me was, I just wasn't expecting, I guess, going there, and, you always get fearful. I was excited to go, but then once I got there, I think I was just overwhelmed. I think if anyone hasn't been to a summit, the first time they go, they're going to be overwhelmed. There's going to be so much information thrown at you. You learn so much and you want to do it all, but it's literally impossible. You can only pick a few things, right? We probably only enacted 3 things that semester, which is completely normal. When I got back, I had like a meltdown, right? So I was in my semester with you. I didn't fully upfront share where I was at. I was already super anxious. I was having a lot of like postpartum anxiety with, after I had Henry, and I was already struggling before I went, but I think you get busy and you ignore it. So that's what I was doing. So I went to the summit, got home, like had this panic attack. It was crazy. And then pretty much talked to you. I pretty sure on that next call, or maybe on an off week call, and told you what was going on. And I mean, at that point I was like not focused on business at all. My head was completely out of it. I wanted to get all the stuff done, but I just couldn't do it. So during that semester, I really leaned on you for personal stuff. I knew that I wasn't at the point where I could focus on my production. I mentally, like, it wasn't there. So I needed to get back to the basics of just focus on me. So I started therapy. I got on medicine, all the things. I did everything I could to get myself straight. And then I focused on production.
Incredible.
So,
and
yeah.
you did. And by the end of the semester, you made the decision to not only go back to your next summit, where I think I met your mom, and your husband was there too, and of course your brother's in the Corps.
Yeah.
But in talking with Rick, you also applied for level 3, and you ended up getting in. And one of the big reasons you got in was a big assignment that Rick gave you at the end of the second or level 2 semester. Do you remember what that assignment was?
Yeah, he told me that I had to call 100 realtors in 1 week.
In 1 week. And so this is an assignment he gave to someone who you, at the beginning of this conversation, you said you were scared to death to call realtors.
Yeah.
And he told you to call 100 in a week. So how many of those 100 did you end up calling?
I called all of them.
You called all of them.
Yep.
And you're in level 2. And last semester, I saw you up at the end of the last summit. I saw you up on stage graduating as a level 2 graduate. It was like a proud papa moment for me. It really was seeing you up there. It was so cool.
It was so cool. I was like, how did I make it here after all, like, what I had been through, like, and I mean, not a lot of people know what I had been through because, we don't really talk about it that much, but, I'm completely open about it. And I want people to know that, there's so much more to this, like for me, especially, and I know other people in the Corps, this is truly like family, and we can rely on each other for personal stuff. I mean, yes, there's a lot of work, but there's a lot of personal too. Right. So
that's a big part of it. A lot of what we do professionally is, our success is a reflection of how we're feeling personally and doing in our personal life too. We have a couple of questions here, Sherri, from Michael and Jared. But before I get into those questions, I'll just ask you if you had 1 or 2 things to say to someone who may be struggling with just taking that jump of going to a summit. What advice might you give someone going to their first summit, or someone who's nervous about jumping into the Corps or going to the summit?
So I would just say to pretty much, like, as much as you can, be open-minded and ask all the questions. I think where you make a mistake is you don't actually ask the questions, right? Like, you go to summit, you're overwhelmed. Go out at night, go hang out with people, meet new people, and ask all the questions. If you're hesitant, just know that you're probably going to go there, meet a new friend, and literally, you know what I mean? You're already going to have new friends as soon as you get there. So you don't have to worry about that. So I would just say, just be open-minded, go have a good time, and just take notes and learn and come back, and don't be all stressed out like me, because it's not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now, Michael has a question here. So can you share a couple of strategies on generating leads? So let's say realtor leads.
So strategies on generating leads. So I would say for the most part, I'm at my home office and my dogs are barking, but
of course they are.
As soon as I'm on here.
Yeah.
So strategies as far as generating leads. All of my leads, for the most part, a huge portion of them come from my realtors. So I'm generating leads, but it's from realtors, past clients, VIPs, and I'll go into that a little bit, mainly, right? So like that's my main book of business. And then a little bit of business leads, which goes into my VIPs. So I get a bit of business from my insurance agent, title company, a lot from past clients. And then, like I said, 50% is probably realtors. So
Yeah.
the way I generate is I really focus on my theme day calls, like we're taught in the core, and I'm asking for the business on all of those calls. So when I'm calling the realtors, I'm asking for the business. On Wednesdays, when I'm calling those pre-approvals, which every single Wednesday, I make sure to get, even if I can't get all of them, because we all have a lot pre-approved right now, I will, ask on all those calls. Even if I get 10 in that day, I'm going to ask. So that's where all my business is coming from. And I have learned that nobody else asks. So it does make us really, really different just by doing that. And that's
what does that look like when you ask for the business? Let's even say it's with a good realtor that you have a decent relationship with. You give them a call on Monday, they're in your top 40. What does that ask look like?
Yeah. So on Mondays, I usually pick a topic, and the conversation does not start like, hey, you got any business? Like, that's not how it goes. I start the conversation. I talk to them about, how's life, all that. And then I usually invite them to an event, or I tell them about a new product. So as I'm talking to them about that, and through that, we get through the conversation, and I'm like, hey, do you know anyone that I could help before we get off the phone? Do you have a deal? And I go into specifics. I don't just ask. I usually say, is there a deal that you couldn't make work this week that I could help with? Is there a client that you talked to this week that's renting and you just couldn't get them off the sidelines? Maybe I could give them a call. So I try to really put it in their heads of
really be specific.
Right. Because if you're not, they're like, oh no, there's no one right now. And I'm like,
I love that. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah. The more specific I am, they usually do think of somebody that they have in their queue. Wow. Yep.
That's fantastic. So I would say, write that down. I love that. Rick recently shared with us, the key to any phone call is be interested and add value. And how do we add value, right? Something of value is something that other person needs. The only way to find out what it is they need so we can add value is by being interested, right? So it's like this big circle, be interested to learn what it is they need to be able to add value. And the only way to add value is by being interested. And then to ask for the business at the thank you or the wow. Rick said that recently. It was just like, when you add that value and they say, thank you very much, or wow, that was really a game changer for me. That's your green light to ask for the referral. So I love that.
Yeah. That's true.
Michael also wants to know where you think the market's headed. Who the heck knows, right?
Well, we get that question a lot. I mean, just from clients, right? And where's the market headed? I think it can only be a certain way for so long. And if you look at history, like, okay, you have these years where we've been struggling and all of that occurring. It's only really stayed that way for 5 years. At some point, it's got to go the other way. And so in my thought, we're in like year, four-ish, where we're, coming out of where we were in COVID, where it's really busy and all of that. So I think there'll be another turn in like a year and a half. That's my thought. But who knows if we'll actually follow what I think.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. I mean, people have been predicting that rates are going to drop for the last 4 years, right?
I know. Every year we're like, you're going to refi. It's okay. And then it's like, well, maybe not, because we can't predict. We can only go off of the, what everyone tells us when we read. So
hope for the best and plan for the worst. Now, Jared asks, what's the one thing that your realtor partners would say that you do differently that helps them with buyers?
I would say really the follow-up and the CRM, the calls. There's a lot of things. So by being in the core, they've taught me all the calls that I need to do, the Tuesday update calls, staying in front of the client and making sure I'm talking to them. So I would say I'm probably the best in the way I stay in front of them and talk to the buyers is probably the best thing that I do. The buyer is always super happy with the transaction. The communication is the key for us, because our biggest complaint is always that a lender doesn't communicate. Also, I meet all my pre-apps in person. That was a game changer when it happened. And ever since then, the realtors have really come.
How do you get them? So do you get them to come into your office?
So I'll meet them anywhere. My office is kind of further. So I will meet them like in my county somewhere at like a Panera or a Starbucks or wherever is like public, they're
To
okay.
do
They
the
feel
consult with them, the initial
yeah.
consult.
And I bring
Yeah.
a folder, and in it it has like what we call the wealth accumulator. It has the do's and don'ts of home buying. We go through all of it. We go through the worksheet line by line, and I explain everything up front the first time. And that's the big difference, because there's no confusion throughout the process by doing that. So that's what they like. They like the hands-on face-to-face stuff.
Yeah. And do you know what your lead to funding percentage has been over the last couple of years or over the last year?
Lead to fund.
Or lead to pre-app?
Lead to pre-app. So I'd have to look at a little column, because I'm supposed to be at what, 75%. I'm right on cusp for each of my conversions.
Yeah.
So I think lead to pre-app, I'm right at like that 70% number. Lead to pre-app. So the only reason that's gotten better, to be honest with you, is because of that upfront. I also don't send any online apps. I take everything over the phone as soon as I get them on there. I fill it out for them. That has been the game changer.
And that's a great way to, build rapport and find out, hear from the inflections in their voice, things they're unsure about, or things they're guessing on. But I'd be shocked if anybody on this call, honestly, myself included, I know I'm not at 70% lead to pre-app. Lead to 1003, sure, but not, so your conversion is monstrous, and that's just unbelievable. And if half of those close, I mean, you could be generating, I think, if you even 50 leads a month,
right?
50.
If I could even just convert, and
I mean, that's
for
17, 18 closings a month,
right?
At a 50% pre-app to fund conversion. So
for me, it's more, a lead. It's a problem of, and what I've been working on, and just so people can, understand it's not just you, is making sure I wean out where sometimes I'm getting some of like, the credit repair and things like that, making sure that I'm figuring out, how much of my leads are that, and really focused on, that part of it. So
good. Now, we're just about wrapping up here. What would you say is in general, just the number one thing the course really, really helped you with? Business, personally, professionally?
So the number one thing would be, I was always been so like shy, or didn't want to say the wrong thing, or I'm just, Rick always says I'm like too nice, right? Or whatever. That's the one thing I've had to change, is like, okay, I got to get a little bit of grit in order to be able to do a good job, because I have to have enough courage to pick up the phone and call and not worry about what someone thinks about me or what someone says about me. I mean, I don't care anymore. Like, I know I'm good at what I do. So why do I care? I'm just trying to help their businesses. So that is the number one thing for sure.
That's unbelievable. That is awesome. Well, Sherri, I really appreciate your time very much. You're one of my all-time favorite students, one of my all-time favorite people, truly. You talk about grit, and girl, you have it. 3 kids, happily married, great family in a small town. You have all the excuses in the world, but you don't use any of them. You just grit and blow right through them all. So I just can't wait to see what another 3 years is going to do for you.
Yeah, me either. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.